Welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly podcast featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from fresh perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 294, Love is All You Need. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm the host. I'm here today in my home studio. I've recently named Anderson Studios. I mean, why not? It is my home studio. It's a division of the many companies within a company of the Soul Works Group and the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. I'm real excited and happy to be bringing you the show. And friends, really honored that you trust me with your journey and that you support the show so much, not only with your listenership and sharing it with those you love, but also through your financial support. So welcome to the week. Happy Monday. And there's a little bit of a celebration here because we're pretty excited that we're getting close, very close, only 6 more weeks, and we'll be at episode 300. Today is the Authentic Spiritual Journey show 294. And the title of today's show is Love is All You Need. Love is all you need. And it is a beautiful month. We're starting the month where we typically celebrate love, and that is February. So today is Monday, February 5th, and the Authentic Spiritual Journey show 294, Love is All You Need. Welcome, dear friends, and we're happy to have you along this journey we call life. I decided to choose the title of Love is All You Need. That was a song I grew up with, right? I can hear it in my head, that love, 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 you know, that old Beatles song. And when I first heard that, I was probably a kiddo. And I can tell you, I probably had no earthly idea what love really was then. And truthfully, as I develop, as I grow on my spiritual journey, on my emotional and self-awareness journey, I think I'm still learning what love is. I'm still learning what love is, how it's expressed by God, through others, and even through me, through myself, through my ministry. And I thought this was a very important topic to think about, to pray on, to be mindful of. I've really learned that when we can ask questions about areas of our lives we've taken for granted, when we can be inquisitive and curious, that makes room for growth. This is a super important aspect of the journey for me. You'll hear me say over and over that being a part of the show and the whole podcast channel is really to help people grow, prosper, and evolve. We do that through my show, The Authentic Spiritual Journey, through the various programming we do with the magnetic voice, with healing your family legacy. And it's been a journey for all of us, right? If you're listening, it means, man, you have been on a journey probably for some time. You're seeking to live a life that is on purpose. You're seeking to live an abundant life. You want to be in the flow with God and with all good. You want your family to be happy and at peace. And I think, friends, these are really universal goals and universal desires. But as individuals, and even certainly as a culture right now, it looks like we are headed the opposite way. And this is a tremendous concern of mine. And that said, I think there are ways to heal, there are ways to grow, and there are certainly ways to move forward in our understanding of love. And as we understand love more deeply, we change ourselves. We change our parenting and our home life. We change our work and therefore our world. Especially those of you who have a large impact by what you do. Imagine as you shift and change, imagine the number of lives that you change. That said, think about all of us. We all have some family member. And if we don't have a family member, we have coworkers. If we don't have coworkers, well, we all have to shop and go to the store. So if any of us make any shift at all towards consciousness, if any of us make any shift at all towards living love from a higher awareness, then the world will be changed for the better. The world will be changed for the better. So, did you grow up hearing that song, Love Is All You Need? I love it. I love it. I love the words. I love the instrumentation. And I love that even today, as I listen to it, it causes me to think and brings images from long ago. That's a lot of fun. I can also see, as I think about my journey, as I think about my own growth, that I'm certainly not where I was as a child. That said, I have a lot more growing to do. So every show is to help you grow, prosper, and evolve. And today is about love. It's about what we thought about love. It's about what we want when we say love. It's also about how this higher love, this higher energy that we call God, this Christ essence that many people just think of as Jesus, but I think it's even bigger than Jesus. I think it's the presence of God that was known so fully in Jesus is known in all of us. And I think this is what we're called to be. I know it is. I know it from the scriptures. I know it through my own experience. I know it through my meditation that we are, all of us, are called to love as God loves. The scriptures say, be ye perfect as I am perfect. Jesus said, this is my commandment, that you love one another, that your joy may be complete or your joy may be full. As a matter of fact, I find it interesting, the tremendous focus that we have from the scriptures on love and on the power of love. And it's interesting because different translations have different amounts of love mentioned. And the one with the most that I found is the New Living Translation, where the word love is mentioned 645 times. King James is one of the least, actually. That said, even in the King James, it's mentioned more than any other value is love. And the scriptures tell us the greatest of these is love, right? Faith, hope, and love, these three, the greatest of these is love. The greatest of these is love. Now, it's interesting to me, and it gives me pause a little bit that our own scriptures, our Christian scriptures, have this incredible focus on love, and that in fact, so many of our places of worship, so many of our spiritual communities can be full of, I'll use this word, gossip, even backbiting, and just many, many forms of unhealthy behaviors that are definitely far from what I would call love. Right? So it's like our scriptures are always trying to call us higher. And here we are trying to live life, and our personalities are drawing us down, down, down. And so we're seeking, when we go to a place of worship, what we're seeking to do is what? To learn to live from love. It's interesting, though, because we do live in a world where we have to have money, we have to pay bills, we have to get along with others. You know, there's a great many things involved in life, and it's real easy to get off track about what is the most important thing I am to be doing right now. And for instance, I love teaching prosperity programs because I love to help people learn to be powerful co-creators. I get a lot of great feedback about how once they learn to be in the flow of prosperity, they feel more connected. That said, being in the flow financially is not a substitute for love. As a matter of fact, what do we know? We know that finances are wonderful, but you can't buy love. Right? There's a song from the musical Rent about you can't buy love, but I know you can rent it. That's heartbreaking, right? So it's true that you can't buy love. That said, there's nothing wrong with being in the flow financially. As a matter of fact, that's wonderful. But if that is your number one goal, you're going to be missing out on something extremely important. As a matter of fact, the most important, according to our scriptures. Faith, hope, and love, these three, the greatest of these is love. So often when I talk about love, I have people who have had harm done to them as they were children, and even some in their current marriage or situation. And they will say to me, well, I know I'm supposed to love, so I'm going to let him, I'm not going to report him for beating me, or I'm not going to leave this harmful situation. I'm supposed to love him better. And I want to reassure you, friends, that staying in a situation that is abusive is not loving to yourself. And that is an important thing to realize. In some way, it seems obvious, but in other ways, because we weren't taught to care for ourselves and our bodies, most of us were not taught appropriate boundaries for personal safety and protection, that sometimes we let others hurt us in ways that we really know are not right. We know they're not good, and we certainly know they're not loving. So sometimes the most radical kind of love you can have is to leave a situation if that is what will help you be safe, if that's what will help you feel taken care of, and if it will help you move forward. In other words, will it help you grow? So this is a difficult kind of thing to understand because it sounds like love should include everyone. Now, as I'm saying all of this, what I'm meaning is it's okay to have boundaries and still be loving. It's okay to have boundaries and still be loving, meaning we don't love everyone in our lives the same way because of how that could put us in a potentially dangerous situation. Now, when I talk about radical love, like for instance, I have said before, and I'm going to be talking about today quite a bit, that what the kind of love we really need is a radical love. Well, in a radical love, what I mean is we find things like forgiveness within us, or we find the strength to love ourselves enough to leave a harmful situation. But please don't ever think I am saying love means allowing yourself to be hurt. That is not love. That is not love. The kind of radical love is to know that you are worthy, to know that love is available to all of us. And if you are taking care of yourself, if you are loving yourself, knowing God loves you, if you have to leave, I don't know why this is coming up for me so much today. If you have to leave a potentially harmful situation, you leave it. That is love. Because the only way this other person that's hurting you might get help is if you leave. But if you stay and you let the behavior continue, that's not loving for you or them. So I hope you are hearing that. Because when we think about love, we think of this all-encompassing, all-expanding idea, and it is. It absolutely is. But how we manage through the world, right? We have to protect ourselves, and we can still love, but that doesn't mean we have to be right by the person, right? So the interesting thing is God loves all, and we are seeking to bring love in, through, and as us into the world. Well, the scriptures say, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. What the scriptures are really saying is you can only love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? Because the way you love yourself is the way you love others. In other words, it is how you understand love to be. I had a great teacher many years ago who taught me something about radical love, and she talked about when we were born, that however we were raised and however we were mothered and fathered, right? That however we were loved in that environment, that is what we thought love was. She called it your source of love. She would say, your source of love did many things very well. Other things you're going to have to relearn. So we're all tied to this understanding of love that is limited by the way we were raised, the family of origin we were brought up in. And that said, that doesn't mean we can't grow, right? So even me talking about this in this show, me saying love is all you need, me saying, let's learn together what love is. How is God wanting to express love through me, through the world, through others? Just by asking this question, it's going to draw us back into our memory banks. And we're going to be thinking about how were we taught to love? And then we're going to see how we've already made choices to love in a different way in our adulthood. But it is a process to have this radical kind of love. This is a process. So if I'd say, what's the number one thing to work on about love? It's that love is the single most important aspect of how you walk through the world. Love is the guiding force for your actions, for your beliefs, for your voting, for the way you treat the environment, for the way you worship and talk to friends, for the way you love. Right? Love is the single most important aspect of our lives in terms of guiding and directing our behaviors. The reason I think so much about love and how it relates to the larger context is that what I'm seeing more and more in our general, not only in the US, but in the world culture at large, is that there seems to be an idea that science knows more than faith groups or spirituality. And interestingly, in the last 100 years, most scientists that made some of the greatest discoveries, in history, had a very strong faith that guided their innovation, that guided their experimentation in industry. And it seems to be now that if you bring up spirituality or God, that you're seen as simple or naive. And because of that focus on the intellect, there seems to be more emphasis on knowing more and knowing right rather than loving. It's why different groups get so vilified. For instance, in the presidential election, if you don't vote for my candidate, suddenly you're a them and I'm part of an us, and I'm right and you're wrong, and I have no place for you in my consciousness, in my friendships, or in my world. And so, see, that love does not divide in that way. The kind of love I'm talking about doesn't divide that way. The kind of radical love I'm talking about has room for people with different opinions. It has room for me to hear what you might have to say. Even if I vehemently disagree, I can value you as a person and as a soul if I'm coming from love. I can value your life, your opinion, your life experience if I'm coming from love. If I'm coming from the intellect and only on what I know, then I'm right and you're wrong. And that sets up a scary dynamic, because if I'm right and you're wrong, I can begin to dehumanize you. And as I dehumanize you, I no longer care what happens to you. And that creates an inner division that is very, very unhealthy, and in fact is very toxic. I mentioned earlier that although the word love is mentioned in the Bible so many times, that in our places of worship, often there's so much gossip and backbiting and, a lot of unhealthy stuff, right? So why am I mentioning all that? Well, I'm mentioning all that because even within faith groups, if you don't wear the right thing, sing the right thing, if you ask the wrong question, pretty soon you're out and they're in. Maybe your hair's too long, or maybe you haven't, maybe you don't have a job, or you're homeless, and maybe you haven't bathed in a while. Maybe you smell funny. Why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this because I have seen every one of those things played out in our spiritual communities. And of course, I see it played out on the street every day. If we were coming from this radical love, that there's room for everyone in some way, that those behaviors would cease to exist. Now, of course, we're human. We might think things and then have to reason ourselves out of it. We might get frustrated and want to vent to a close friend. That's different from gossiping and backbiting and talking about people and all sorts of unhealthy behaviors. I think what's needed right now, more than ever, is a radical love that has room for everyone. Now, as I say this, and I mentioned this before, so does love have boundaries? Yes, love has boundaries. For instance, if there is an unsafe adult around children, they don't get to be around children anymore. That's how it is. They have proven that they are not capable of appropriate loving as an adult. Their loving is broken and toxic, and they need healing. I've had to deal with that in several of the churches I've served over the years. And I've had to say to this person, you can no longer come to the ministry given these behaviors. And you say, well, that's not loving. Oh, it is loving. It's loving to our children. It's ensuring that our children grow up with a healthy love, not a toxic love, not a wounded love. I've said to those people, you can watch online. You can be a part that way, but you may not be around our children. So love has boundaries, yes. In the story where Jesus, there's a story in the Bible where Jesus, walks into the temple and they were, selling in a way that made him quite angry, obviously. And he turned over the table and had some emotion. I mean, you can't get much more big than turning over a table. That said, was that loving? Yes. It was about loving God, calling out the bad behavior. So that is loving. So sometimes we think having boundaries is not loving, but in fact, it's the highest love there is. It's protecting what needs to be protected. In other words, it's protecting what matters most, the sacred, the holy. When we have this big radical love, that's God love, we protect what matters most, the naive, the sacred, the holy, the young, the innocent. This is what radical love protects. What we see played out mostly now in our culture and certainly in sitcoms and everything else is that love is transactional, meaning I only give you love if I get back exactly the same measure in return. I'll do this thing, so you do this thing back. I'll say I love you because I hope to hear you say I love you, rather than just being loving. And this is a really big challenge I'm talking about. It's a challenge to love more fully and deeply. I have a dear friend, and I've had him on the show before, Dr. Tommy Dorsey Sr. And we often have a conversation about the nature of love and trying to understand it. For instance, I always say that to me, love is when my son doesn't feel good and I'm up in the middle of the night and he's throwing up or has a fever. It doesn't matter if I feel like it or not. The only loving action is to be there with him. Or if a friend I know is going through a tough time, the only right thing to do is to call and to listen and check in. Not say, well, I'm too busy, you know. Love is being damaged by someone and then years later being able to forgive. Again, not reconciling, but being able to forgive and move on. To not hold on to anger and resentment and hatred. You know, there was someone in my childhood that hurt me deeply, and for 20 years I was angry. 20 years. And when I found forgiveness, it was this energy that moved through me, and it was healing, and it was powerful, and it was so freeing. And I think forgiveness must be the highest form of love. Interestingly, within about a year of that, or less than a year rather of that forgiveness, this person died. And I was so happy that I had been able to release my pain and hurt and fear and be free of that, so that when he passed, I didn't have any guilt or any feelings. I just had more relief. Love, in my view, is the very nature of God. Love is the very nature of God in action, and love practiced deeply is forgiveness. So the question I'm working with now is, how is love wanting to be known in and through me in this new year? We're in the second month of 2024, and there's always going to be challenge. There's always going to be life. Like, none of us get out of that, right? There's going to be challenge. We're going to have ups and downs. We're going to have money. We're going to not have money. We're going to have jobs we love. We're going to have jobs at times we don't like. We're going to have issues of health come up with ourselves, with our friends, with our family, and we're going to have to deal with that. What I know is that every single thing that comes up is a way to get us more in touch with love, meaning everything that comes up is an opportunity for our soul to grow into love more, into love for God, love for ourselves, love for others. So my hope for you and my own journey is that as things come up that are challenges, and they will come up, is that we can really see those as opportunities to grow into love, and not that something is against us. I don't want something to be against you. I want you to be able to know that you're loved and supported by the universe, and that as a challenge comes up and you grow into it and you learn to love, that situation starts to resolve, and then another situation comes up. That happens in this journey we call life. So love is all you need, my friend. Love is all you need. But that love and your understanding of that love is going to grow and expand as you become more self-aware, as you become more guided in your spiritual process. And simply asking the question in the morning, many of you know, I set my intention every morning, and the journals are now out on Amazon, which is a lot of fun. So in addition to that work, we can be asking ourselves, okay, how am I going to grow in my understanding of love today? Or how is love going to show up in my life? Or God, help me see love as I go throughout my day and my week. Help me love in a greater way as I go into the office and deal with personality issues. Help me love in a grander, more precise, more understanding way. Help me, God, to live this love. We know that from our own scriptures that love is mentioned over 600 times in the New Living Bible, New Living Translation of the Bible. So my hope for you is that you'll be able to embody that love and take that wherever you go, into your own life, into the life of your family, your work, and your community at large. My hope is that as life happens, as these challenges come up, that you're going to seek more deeply to know, how can I live into love in this? And not have so many personality wants and needs and, but to really move into your soul and live from love. Friend, you will begin to develop even more your understanding of love. You're going to be able to express it more deeply, more fully in your own life as you are on your spiritual journey and with others. This is my hope and my prayer for you. I want you to know that as you go throughout the world, as you are integrous with your words and you're not gossiping or backbiting, but you're living love, your life is going to work. Your life is going to flow. You're going to be guided and blessed in all you do. And this is my prayer for you. So, dear friend, thank you for joining me today. We are always honored to have you along the journey. We feel blessed that you're a part of the Experience of the Soul podcast family, and especially a listener of the Authentic Spiritual Journey. So we lift you up in our prayers. I'm always lifting you in prayer for God's highest and best in your life. I look forward to seeing you next week, and blessings on the journey, dear friend.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2024, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The Soulworks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. Soulworks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the Soulworks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.